everybody. Thank you all for coming out for our friend Jack the Barber. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the whole name. I'll just say Jack the Barber. As everyone knows, this is a special week and special weekend in Charlestown. And I get a few people just to thank for making this happen. Of course, the Mayor Marty Walsh, and Andy O'Hearn and Stevie Raymond really pushed this thing together and stayed on top of it. Chris Breen from the Mayor's office started his first day on the job a little over a year ago. And with casinos being built and traffic and everything else, the thing on his desk was, we got to get a sign up for Jack, because Andy wouldn't let it go. And that's an important piece, because with all that other stuff going on around us and the big issues that we deal with every day and the mayor has to deal with. And of course I said to Chris, well, what does the mayor think? He says, get it done. So we got it done. But with all those big issues around us and the things on the mayor's desk every single day, it's things like this. It's remembering the people in our town that have made it the place that people want to come back to, see a parade. People want to wake up at every day and just go about their everyday life knowing that at some point this neighborhood touched them. And I think that's what Jack the Barber is all about. You know, back before there was $1 million homes around here, I think we can all do a show of hands when times were tough. Jack let you put a little something on the cuff, right? We still owe him a haircut, a few of us, right? Yeah. That was a rhyme, Bonnie. Write that one down. That was good. But anyway, I'm going to turn this over to Andy, and we'll get going with the program here.
All right, thanks, Dan. James Luiselli, as we all knew him as Jack the Barber, was a great friend of Charlestown. To many young townies, he was not only a friend, but a coach, a mentor, and occasionally even a barber. Jack's shop was a welcoming place in the turbulent times of this neighborhood. He had his finger on the pulse, and as such, would give advice, sometimes in a single witty comment like, hey Jack, how long's the wait? Jack would reply, a while, but just leave your head here, you don't use it anyway. A biting wit that made its point and got a laugh as well. We all have great memories of Jack and stories he related of his beloved wife Chris, who he referred to as Tootie. And as far as his son Jim goes, Jack would say, I work on the outside of the head, my son works on the inside. Dr. Jim is a clinical psychologist. Although Jack wasn't born here, he's the ultimate townie. And now the barber that gave so much to all of us will always be memorialized in this square, so we and future generations can pass by, smile, and think of the great barber. I'd like to thank Jack's son for sharing his dad with all of us. Danny Ryan, certainly, the mayor, and especially Chris Breen, because as Danny said, I was very persistent, but Chris did all the heavy lifting. So thank you very much.
All right, before we turn it over to the mayor and then unveil it, we got a special treat here. Our poet laureate, Bob Powers, from, when was it, 80?
88. Don't lay it on too thick.
Little piece in 88. We're going to turn this one over. Come on over, Bob.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor, and I'm overwhelmed to be able to stand before you today in this great dedication to Jack the Barber. He was more than a cuff and a coach. He was like an uncle to a lot of people as well. And I'd sit here so many days, and he'd help me through a lot of things. And you don't get that from basic shop owners or anyone else here. And it was just great. So I wrote this in homage to Jack in August 1988. At the corner of Elm Street and Bunker Hill, I'll use the past tense, stood a man with a seasoned touch. The tools of his trades are scissors and blades for the locks of hair he cuts. His demeanor and wit let one easily sit as he masterfully snipped away, keeping his clientele satisfied and stride with the styles of the day. From a crew cut and whiffle to a regular boy's, his craft embodied precision and poise, trading ballpark banter with talk of the town. Yes, that barber, he covered a lot of ground. An institution to our town was he. He was more than just a barber. Generations passed through this man's shears, from youngsters to grandfathers. Tending the crowns of Charlestown's townies, he stood at the crossroads of life here. Veteran, family man, great football coach. It's forever in these lines to Jack I chose. Thank you very much.
Nice job. Nice job. I also almost forgot, I want to thank Tommy Ward and Mark Champa, too, for helping us set up today. It's a little shaky up on that ladder earlier. Hopefully that thing comes down. But I want to turn it over to Mayor Walsh, and I want to thank him once again for making this happen. And also we have with us Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, because we also forget before Jack served us here in Charlestown, he served this nation admirably in World War II. So we want to thank him for that, and the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs is here too. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Danny. And it's an honor to be here today. Let me get some of the thank yous out of the way first. I just want to thank Chris Breen, who does an incredible job here in Charlestown. I want to thank Danny Ryan, State Representative Ryan, who's also done an incredible job representing from the town, representing us at Beacon Hill, not just Charlestown and Chelsea, but also the entire city of Boston. So thank you, Danny, for the great work you do. I want to thank Commissioner Sterling for her work. Giselle Sterling is a Marine, and she's proud of that fact. So any Marines here, the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs is a Marine, so and a veteran, and fought for this country. So I want to thank the Commissioner. I want to thank Andrew Ahern for pushing this. This is something. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for your commitment as well. To James, Jack the Barber's son, thank you as well. And to the family, I'm sure there's all the family behind us, so thank you. A lot's been said already. I didn't know Jack the Barber, but when you hear words of a football coach, when you hear words of involved in the community, when you hear words of being a barber, everything, we all know what goes on in the barber shop, and the barber shop knows everything going on in the neighborhood. But most importantly, a veteran, World War II veteran, part of the greatest generation. This is something that we should never forget. All of us that are here, I'm 50 years old, all of us that are here and younger than that, younger than the greatest generation, we can never forget their sacrifice and service to our country. Because the country we have today and the neighborhoods we have today are because of people like Jack the Barber. People who put their life on the line and came back, didn't make a big fuss about it, and came back into society. Now, I think Jack the Barber moved, upscaled. He went from West Roxbury, Jamaica, plane over to Charlestown. So that's a good thing. But, you know, this is important. And what we're doing today is remembering him in Hero Square. And just so people understand that. Monuments to Bostonians who have served our country and our community. That's what Hero Squares are. So every time you drive by one and you see that, think about that. That person helped build our country and helped build our neighborhoods. They help us tell their stories. They connect us to the past. They make sure, the Hero Squares make sure that we never forget the men and women who fought for our country. Today we have 1,270 Hero Squares in the city of Boston. So when you think about the amount of people that fought for our country from the city of Boston, and just 1,270 of them are on top of a square in a neighborhood in our city. That's an incredible tribute to a special person. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out today, and I think it's even more special today. And I know Andrew, you've been persistent in pushing the city for a long time, but I think it's worth the wait because you couldn't find a more fitting neighborhood and a more fitting weekend than to unveil this Hero Square than on Bunker Hill Week, Charlestown Pride Week. So I want to thank you all for coming. And to Jack the Barber's family, thank you for your service that your father, your grandfather did for us. Thank you for everything. And we have a little gift for you, for the family. You can open if you like. Before we unveil the actual sign. We'll pull this down. We're going to unveil the banner, and then we'll take the next step.
Shook him right off. Come on.
Not that easy.
And I'm going to ask Jack's son, James, to say a few words.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, it's great here to be here with our family, and thanks to everyone for this incredible memorial to my dad. And I almost feel compelled to say a few words because, my dad loved Charlestown. He loved the people of Charlestown. It was really his life. And his barbershop, I'm looking right over because that's the one I remember most, was a kind of sanctuary for him. And you know him. He was a performer, and he loved being the center of attention. And that was his stage. And for 4 or 5 generations, 5 decades, that's what he did. When I was a kid in middle school, really high school and college, I can remember coming here before Bruins and Celtics games. I'd meet him here, and we'd go to dinner. And I'd walk in there, and it was like I was in another solar system. I couldn't believe what was there, the laughs, the people. There was Juicy and Crash and Nippy. And my favorite, John Softy McNamara, who was a funny guy. And you didn't know as a kid if you were going to get tied to a pole or stuffed in a cabinet somewhere. There was that crazy monkey in the toilet that came down. Yeah. And, of course, the Townies, the football team, which is such a great part of my memory. And just to show you, we're talking 5 decades later, and I can remember the backfield of the Townies, Richie Hardy at quarterback, Nippy Nolan, Roy Lemire, Joe Gass, Paul Troy, wide receiver. Remember defensive lineman Pat Considine, his brother, Crash McNeil, his brother Brian, Tom Beckworth, on and on it goes, Shorty Sullivan. This is amazing. I'm just doing off the top of my head. That's the impact it had on me. And as a water boy for a couple of years, I remember coming back to my dad and saying, Dad, they're using words in there I just never heard before. I was 12, 13 years old. But anyway, it's so grateful for you to do this. And, I know my dad's looking down with a big smile on his face. He's probably got his clippers in one hand and a Carling's Black Label in the other hand. So, thank you very much. It means a great deal. Thank you.
And that is it for today. Thank you all very much. There's plenty going on here in Charlestown today. Down by the 520 Club, we've got a block party from 2 to 6. There's a fair down at the mall. Please enjoy the neighborhood while we're all here. Stick around. Oh, Bobby, I'm sorry. The man who got me some of these trophies over here for the History Museum, Bobby Kerrigan.
I just want to say one quick thing. Way back when, my wife and I, Kathy Quigg at the time, and Chris and Jack went to Italy for a month. And I had the greatest experience of my life, and there's a multitude of stories, one of which some have heard, most haven't. We were experiencing the vineyards in the Burgundy area of France, which he loved the best. He was a good wino. He taught us all how to drink wine, and we'd hit the vineyards and drink a glass of wine, and down the road we'd be driving. And in the opposite direction, the French people would be coming, and as they were coming, they'd stick their arm out the window and give him the finger. And he'd go, look at them, the French. They never liked me, and they know we're Americans because I got a rental car, and we'd be going down the road, they'd give them the finger, And after about 20 minutes, we pulled into the next vineyard, and he gets out of the car, and there's his camera on the roof of the car.
All right. So thank you, Bobby. When I was doing a little Google search, too, to make sure I had some facts right, Jack's son wrote a book on sports psychology. And you're wondering which part of the neighborhood actually inspired that book, the sports or the psychology, right? But anyway, thank you all very much. Thanks for the special tribute, man, to Jack the Barber, our friend, and just really an important part of Charlestown. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the day and the weekend. Happy Bunker Hill.